what I was given was a tool that I could go into a dark cave, which I went into that cave unbeknown. I didn't even know how I got in the cave, and I was just like feeling around, and I was in that cave, and I decided that this is what I like. I love it here, which is true to some degree. But I'm also an extrovert and like to go out. And so I just spent a while in the cave that felt like months and months on end in that cave. Some people never come out. And there was a spark, a very fleeting spark of a moment of light, and I saw the cave and the walls, but it went back to dark. But I could never stop seeing that image of the walls and the drawings on the walls and everything like that, and even the exit.
Hello, my name is Mate, and you have tuned in to episode 14 of the In-Betweeners. Actually, we might be at number 15 now. I am here with Mataora, who has very kindly offered to, create some space with myself today and share a bit of his journey where perhaps things didn't quite go so well for him, with the intention that fathers who perhaps are struggling with things at this time, that they themselves know that, one, it's okay to be in that place, but there are ways in which we can move forward with that. So I'll pass it over to you, and then you can give a little bit of an intro about yourself.
Kia ora koutou. Kia ora Mate, thank you so much for giving us the space to do what I'm destined to do, to share and create harmony in as many spaces and places and people as possible, and that's my work, as a health medicine facilitator, is to really look at groups and even you can say businesses and individuals or couples or however, a family unit, a group, some sort of team, and we work together and look with one thing in mind, health and well-being, and how we can make that unit healthier, tighter, stronger, and individually we all help carry each other, and it really helps us shine individually. So that's an important thing for my work, our freedom and our uniqueness, our authenticity. So I could say I'm a authenticity activator.
I like that. And to be honest, there are a lot of people out there who aren't, I'm going to call it themselves, so to speak, but they don't even realize it. They don't even appreciate that they're playing a certain role, in essence, based on ideas that have been, I don't want to say put on them, but basically imprinted at some deeper level. And those roles, they serve a purpose in certain situations, but the difficulty is when we then take those same roles and try and apply the same tactics as such or methods in other parts of our life, and then I guess that disharmony manifests, as it were.
Absolutely. So I smiled just then because as you were saying that, saying words like imprinting or bring out, I was wanting to express my my tāmoko, my moko, and how that's exactly a definition of our purpose, within these markings and these symbols that we chose to bring out from within me and connect with the world, because the amount of reactions and connections and influences we get with this change, with this bringing and letting people know, because these are markings of particular words and characteristics. I'm not really into labels, but like the healer or the educator and the sharer and those kinds of things, that's what these markings represent in an artisan way. And so exactly, when we connect with our purpose, we can bring it out, and these markings really help emphasize that. And that's a really good way to start my introduction as well, is my pepe, which is our introduction in Māori, which is called Wereti taku manga. So Wereti is my mountain.
Yes.
Ko Mangapiko taku awa. So Mangapiko is my river. Ko Tainui taku waka. So Tainui is my canoe.
Yes.
My ancestral canoe. And ko Tangata te marae. So Tangata is my marae, which is also, like, you could say, translated fully as the people's marae. And ko Hinerangi taku iwi. So Hinerangi is my larger tribe, a collective tribe. And my sub-tribe, ko Tangata te hapu. So the people's tribe.
Yeah.
Is our sub-tribe. And Mataora is my name, ko Mataora, and ko rongoa taku rongoa, and peace and medicine is the same word. So peace and medicine is my work.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's lovely.
Yeah. So pleasure to meet you. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā tīmata I te kaupapa tēnei, e hoa atu I te matauranga ki ngā tangata katoa. Unge hui e tai ki e ki rau.
So, I mean, if we talk around that journey of healing, not only, I guess, in essence, towards others, but I think in some part in terms of your own healing as well. When, I guess, can you talk to us about your experiences or perhaps a particular experience?
Absolutely. One that really reigned strong for me was the moment that, I got the first phone call, and I just ignored it. I was at Scouts volunteering with the 3 other children, and my daughter was in the car with my partner at the time. And, the moment that I jumped in the car and was taken there, I missed that first call. Then a friend turned up to pick me up. We arrived there before the police. But the moment that I was sitting in the car and I saw my daughter on the road, in her car seat still being braced by someone holding her neck. It's a stranger, not even a paramedic. And the paramedics there was 3 of them, but none of them were to be seen. They were over with people that had their eyes open and stuff. It was quite because I'm medically trained. I'm also first aid provider as well, so it was like I kind of know how things ought to play out. So it was all this other emotion, but the only thing that I could see was my daughter. To the point where I just went still and numb. In that moment of really feeling hopeless, I couldn't even open the door. The person who drove me there, reached across and opened the door for me. I didn't even use my hands. I just kicked the door open and ran over to her, And in that moment, just seeing her there, unconscious, it was a really, really difficult time. But in that moment, I was clear, I was sharp. And all I saw was, and then I just went, Mariana, I was looking around, checking the scene, making sure everyone else was okay, seeing my daughter there. And the only thing that was on my mind was her. The only thing, but yet I still was in that mode of that rescue mode, that, and that took a long time to let go of that mode, where I just carried and held myself up, fleeting moments, but not the moment of clearing and releasing, which really took even a few months after we got out of the hospital. We spent about 7 to 8 months in rehabilitation and so forth. It was a really trialing time. But that moment where I walked up to her and I just said her name, Mariana, and then she just kind of fluttered a little bit. That moment in time was all I needed, was hope. That moment of hope was the thing that I carry and still continue to carry, because at that moment I surrendered, okay, it's all fine. And that's what I was saying, from the moment I was just positive the whole way, oh, you got a phone call, there's been an accident. And I just ignored the phone call. And then the person turned up, there's been an accident, let's go. And I could see his franticness. And then I was going, oh, probably the car's just gone off and they want someone to help to pull the car back on the road.
Yeah.
And I'm turning up and then I see an ambulance there already, you know, and I'm like going, got there before the police, by the way. And then I'm just like seeing the ambulance, oh yeah, I mean, oh cool, the ambulance is there, great, you know.
Yeah.
However, all that background stuff that was going on too, on many scenarios and levels. Yeah, and then just seeing her on the road, it was like, oh, fuck. I let down my guard, you know, I didn't look after her, I didn't protect her. Just so much ego and control, and the lack of being able to be in that space was great healings. However, like I said, even through that whole time, the rehabilitation just carried it. It was that 3 months afterwards where I actually really went down, because I felt like now is the time I'm able and capable to actually just let go and accept.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful, especially with the hope, because I was able to let go of the hope.
Yeah.
Because everything was okay now, per se. It was better than the scenario that was perceived or even expressed in other scenarios from the doctors and so forth. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we have that, there's that biology, I guess, where we nurture and care for our children. And so we want to limit them from threat, for one of the better terms, and we will, I'm going to say, in essence, do everything in our power to do so, and that can manifest itself in a number of different ways. And when a child is put in a situation where their life is threatened, there can be a sense of helplessness on behalf of the parent, in terms of being able to be that protector, be that safeguard. And that's a really tough place to be in, because, you know, those things, I mean, we have a healthy attachment, I like to think, to our children, and that connection. And so if that connection is potentially severed, there can be a huge amount of grief that we go through. And even if that possibility, as it were, manifests, then it can evoke a lot of that response. And I think, you know, you were able, I mean, this is probably a little bit of hindsight, you were able to sort of reflect on the way you responded to that situation, how initially you didn't let that stuff take control, but as you became more aware of what was going on, then that stuff sort of started to creep in and take the reins. Do you think that initial situation helped shape that time in rehabilitation, or do you think there were other things?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like it helped me create a lot more confidence and congruency to the knowledge of who I am and who I be and who I chose to and things I chose to activate in my life. Being a health and medicine practitioner, the hospital was the last place and the worst place I ever wanted to be in, you know, especially under these pretenses. Yes. Knowing the importance of me having to be in a space like that and calling it in, you know, it was intense. And what I could see being in that space was that that there was a lot more appreciation for everything, you know, like that was the greatest birthing of that experience. That hope was appreciation for everything, because it reminds me of a moment where she was always with me, you know, like being a solo father. We spent almost every moment together since her mother left, you know. It was a moment we really weren't together or far from each other. And so there was that kind of attachment you spoke of on I would feel like a motherly perspective, to be honest, you know, a nurturing perspective. Yeah. And so she was so clingy and You know, I had months and months where she would come and just cling on to me at scouts and stuff. So what came up for me was that I didn't say goodbye to her that before the accident.
Right.
And that was one of the hardest things for me to ever realize, you know, that I purposefully left fast so that she couldn't come with us. And that really frustrated her. You know, I was told afterwards, knowing that was a really frustrating thing for her. And I didn't say goodbye, and it made me just appreciate that moment, you know, those important moments of connecting and saying goodbye, because you never know, you know, and the appreciation that comes with that. Yeah, it was a great gift, and that's a really beautiful birth that I could spread into many aspects of my life, with my mother, with, you know, things when you just realize, wow, I didn't see that then, Mum, thank you, or friend, or, you know, it's a beautiful thing, appreciation.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, we sometimes think, you know, if these things hadn't happened, you know, would our lives be that much better? But I think these are all opportunities for us to grow as humans, and in essence bring those connections with others, make them even stronger, you know. And the human condition is, you know, we can get caught up in the busyness of life, and we can forget how important those things are until they're potentially taken away from us. And it sucks on a lot of different levels, but I like to think that, you know, these uncomfortable moments create opportunities for growth and development and stronger connection with ourselves and those around us. So, you know, there's so much going on right now in the world, and a lot of people are uncomfortable in this situation. Heck, they're probably uncomfortable in the previous situation. They just have got used to it.
Yes.
And it's like, how can we take what we're given and really reflect on it? And look, it's hard when you're in it, and you can't necessarily easily take a step back and observe it. But when there is space and when there is an opportunity just to be with yourself, and
be with that sensation, that energy, that issue, you know, and be content with it, and to appreciate things that come from it, you know, and to accept it, you know, to surrender to it. Those are all really powerful things that we could say the present times of isolation and separation that is taking place, that's, you know, because everyone complaining about this and that, and if we have nothing, you know, we can even lose nothing.
Yes.
But if we have something, that's something to really appreciate, you know, and content, to be content with everything that has been given to you and dished to you, good and bad, because I caught it in, man. That's the thing. I couldn't believe, like, there were times when in my past bad things happened to me, and I could instantly point to where I felt it karmically reflected from. And this, there was over like 13 different questions or requests that I called in that were answered from this experience. And then I realized how shallow I was from the basis of those moments when I asked the questions. And I realized that sometimes it's better not to ask questions when you're not clear, just to let it all fold out and come. Because if you ask the questions from a warped perspective, sometimes the reply is warped as well, especially if you're receiving it warped. So sometimes just sitting and being, not pushing or pulling something, is the best thing, to just be content with what is present in our present state of turmoil or discomfort that's potentially unfolding here, or the beautiful aspect of it. It's merely a choice. We are the creators of our path. Of course, we've got co-creators and greater creators that we must align with, but we are a working component for that love and appreciation to be present, because they both exist, you know. They both exist, the love and then the discomfort or the hate or the separation. They're both in existence right here, right now. But which one do we choose and want to have activated and alive within us in this very moment? It's a mere choice. And it may be only mental, it may be only emotional, and it may be only physical, or a combination of them all, or series of leading into each other. But in the end, it doesn't matter how it begins, just as long as you appreciate and make your choices, the choices you've made, the choices you're making, and the choices you will make, you know. It's a beautiful story.
So during that time of rehabilitation, I guess, and she was in the hospital and you were in there, and I guess you had, I mean, you come from a basis of health as such, and so how did you go about, I'm going to say, resolving perhaps the differences in terms of what was being presented in that environment to perhaps what aligned with yourself?
That was really challenging, seeing all the different pockets of the same thing going on, meaning other patients within the area, seeing their bedside care, seeing their interactions with the medical team, their chosen foods. And one thing that I really wanted to speak of was in the hospital, the capacity to actually really control your diet. If people complain so much about the food in there, that's actually not as bad as everyone makes it out to be.
Right.
It's the screen that is the problem. They throw what people generally ask for and like out in front of you, rather than what they really require. So what I mean by that is giving their food like it would be a formula of medicine, applying the right foods. I believe that that was a really important part of her healing. We basically were, for a long time, we did dabble into meats and dairy products and so forth, but very fleeting. And if they were, they were organic or raw and of some sort, you know, from farms, people we knew. And so going from that, living on a farm environment with our own ducks and chickens, you know, and all that, and then getting thrown into this, you know, into Starship Hospital, it was really difficult. So we had to find ways to bring our world into that space, and it exists. You can actually get a request form, and they will give you the general. They've got pre-meals, or you can actually literally say, I want this, I want that, and make a customized meal up for each patient.
Wow.
It's there.
I
don't know if anyone knows how to do it.
No, I was thinking when my wife was in the hospital, as far as I'm aware, that wasn't made known to her as such.
Well, maybe they don't even know themselves, but that's what I saw. That's the system. I mean, I was talking to the nutritionist and shocked that she didn't even know what a lot of the stuff they were giving. Like they were giving this because she had a nasogastric tube to feed and so forth. Because you know she couldn't swallow, she couldn't even talk or open her mouth. By the way, she got the symptoms, just for clarity, was you know, she was hemiplegic, lost the whole right side of her body. She couldn't lift her arm or her leg. She had a basal skull fracture, which on the left side, which has resulted in the only aspect was slight loss of hearing. You know, fricative sounds like fit, j, shit. They're still really soft fricative sounds, but that's fine. It's really unnoticeable. Only when super loud, you know, but we all get that when, which has given her heightened sensitivity, I believe, where there's really loud in the room and it just starts to go, she says she gets a lot of static. And that's really it. And then she had she had a temporal skull fracture as well, which she still kind of have ongoing nosebleeds and stuff like that because of it, even post cauterizations. And then she had this was the main issue, was cerebellum, left cerebellum hemorrhage, which was the main issue. And so I was straight into, we're going to do acupuncture because it's all about the nervous system, getting the nervous system, or there's been severs of neurotransmitters, the connectors of the nerves are all being severed and torn apart. And I sat in with the doctor, and the doctor said to me, "Oh, you can't do acupuncture on her." I mean, I didn't feel like I needed to present it, but I thought I'll let you know, by the way, I'm going to be doing acupuncture. She's going, "Oh no, you can't do that." I was going, "No." So that was a whole navigation of my sovereignty and freedom and my own choices, to be in a space like saying, I'm leading this, guys. When most of the time we would hand that over, but would feel like we'd have to hand it over. And I only realized my input, which was when she was really doing well. We're probably in our last 3-4 months, still a while to go. But, we were like on the other side of the fence, like, we've done a great job. She's doing so well. And one of the ward nurses, as we were walking up, because that was one of the another important things, was bedside care. Was so powerful, most powerful, which is talking about a big aspect of Maori culture, social health, relationship health, which really helped, which I saw a lot of other people didn't have. So that was powerful for us, where just spending time and seeing patients without anyone there, and how that really contributed to their illness and their sickness. And then and then how much people reflected that back to us and said, "Hey, by the way, I just noticed how you're always there, you're always with your daughter. We never left her by herself." But back to that moment when the nurse, and we're walking out of the ward, and the nurse said to us, "Oh, those therapists have done a great job, eh?" And I was like, "Huh?" And I felt like I was overlooked. And actually, when I looked at it, I was like, well, actually, I've contributed the most time and effort, naturally and without a doubt, but it was overlooked. And it made me really think, wow. But that's the key, I felt, that to bring it all together.
So how did you respond to that moment?
The moment of...
when she asked that question.
Well, I didn't respond to her. Because I knew that I was a huge challenge for them in every way, but it was undeniable, where I could see people that were in that ward, in those areas, in those hospitals, that actually had less happen to them, but because they did go down the drugs, I kind of could only within my heart and soul accept 2 forms of medication that they were going to give, which was anticonvulsants and the Pamol. I usually don't even give Pamol to my children, but this is a totally different situation. I was still using lots of acupuncture for pain relief as well. So, that's why I was saying that. And so every moment she started asking for needles. My children don't ask for needles unless they really, really feel that it's beneficial. Or they're really like, "Oh, the needles are really?" Like, So, I could tell that was really helping, and that means it would be an indicator, like pain and stuff like that. So I just kept quiet because I knew how difficult it was, because there were times with other patients in that realm where they started asking, "What are you doing? How do you do it? How does it help?" And I started, only because they asked, I just kept quiet. Because they asked, they inquired, I started to give them the tips and the ideas, and they were feeling like, I can't do that. They felt helpless. They felt like that's not something I can do, or like, I can't be here every day. I can't be bedside all of the time. And I was like, often I'd say that's the most important one. We just got to continue to be there, supporting them all of the time, Never leave them. You know, that companionship, that connection is so powerful. It's great medicine.
And I mean, you talk about that companionship, I guess, in an environment where now I guess people are having to isolate. How, and maybe you have some thoughts on this, maybe not, how do we create that compassion during this environment where people are literally or physically isolated from each other?
I mean, like, the easiest way really, I believe, is to continue to connect with people that are easy to connect with, that you have like-mindedness with, you know, because it's going to help us perpetuate. Even though there's lots of great healings and shifts and movements with those that are challenging or difficult, in these times where we're being asked to go through a more difficult gauntlet, then I reckon that's the key, you know. The companionship is emphasized through like-mindedness, similarities. It's just so much easier at difficult times, you know. And then when we are full, our tank's full, or there's enough energy there, then it gives us the credit and the energy to go to those places, you know, like unplug from that beautiful space and go into the spaces where we're going mobile and be in there and running on battery or on our tanks, you know, and then, and then come out of that space and do help others and do pick up the lessons and the tools and bring them back and plug back in. And so that's what I reckon is a really good way, is that like-mindedness with others and accepting the isolation in a way that you are your greatest friend. And if you can't connect with the friend within you, you cannot truly or really connect with the friends around you or family around you. So, you know, really accepting that loneliness or aloneness, I should say, which is a positive of that same space and energy, is key.
So after, I guess, experiencing this and having your daughter and to be fair, the rest of your children, what has been the effect on your relationship with them?
You mean?
I guess from going through this experience where your daughter, I guess, was potentially not going to be around, and going through that rehabilitation and having to spend that time with her, but I guess making you appreciate that dynamic in terms of those connections.
What came out, to be honest, it's a usual thing, but was emphasized through that whole process, was prioritization. You know, and I did see a very interesting dynamic when we were in the McDonald house, which is just where people stay and live. Ronald McDonald House, that stay when you're usually really close to the Starship Hospital. And so if you can support them, it is a beautiful way to donate, if you have extra money, to donate to the Ronald McDonald House at Starship Hospital. Amazing facility. And, you know, we would have a shared kitchen and eating areas and so forth. And you'd be coming across with all sorts of different types of conditions, maybe not so much when you're in the wards, but definitely when you're in the Ronald McDonald House. And so you could see the patient and then the family. And I saw one mother that was talking so sweet to the patient, which was being really, really challenging. Really like a really naughty child, but understandable with everything going on and getting everything at a core in your child, you know, and you can just get what you want even more so because the potential of you not having a long life is there. But then turning around, and this beautiful child just wanted to share something like, "Mum, look what I saw," and then just getting scolded and locked down, you know, even though that terrible child was treated like a Buddha or an angel, and then that angel being treated like a terrible child, just, you know, because the release of the energy going on the child that can handle it. It was an amazing observation that I saw. But what it made me do was prioritize that social aspect once again. That social health is so important, and that with my children, we became tighter and closer. That a lot of unnecessary things just dropped away. We didn't waste our time with it. That our values, our feelings, our wants were important, and we do our best to navigate and share that, and how they had increased demands as well. You know, because of the trauma and the anxieties that they had to experience and the confusion, you know?
Yeah. And again, I guess that experience too, in terms of you working, I'm going to say as a healer, for want of a better term, has it in any way shaped the way you interact with others in terms of their own experiences?
Absolutely. There's been so many golds, and I mean, like, I consider myself highly empathetic. You know, it's a very useful characteristic and tool for this kind of work. And so it heightened it. It created a greater empathy. And when you can really empathize with others, really be in the same space, you know, really feel and think, be with them, it's a great tool for healing and processing. You know, but then also not to let it override you and take control of you, because it's easy to as well to find. So it created a soundboard and a dialogue for me to create a greater definition of what empathy or being an empath is for me, you know. And you know, every person working with creating, problem solving, healing, betterment and progress for the greater good of the world, I believe empathy is a great tool for that process, whether it's finance, whether it's dealing with someone's physical body or dealing with someone mentally. It just makes sense emotionally, but on all levels, it's a great tool to utilize.
Well, listen, thank you so much for, I guess, really bringing yourself to this space and sharing not only with myself, but those others who are listening. And I feel, irrespective of someone's journey to this time, there's going to be insight into their own lives that they're going to be able to take from this. So I really want to thank you for that. Is there anything that you would like to offer up to those listeners, I guess, to really bring this to a close?
Yeah, so you know, like, the most important thing is returning that appreciation as well, brother, you know, and thanking you for creating this platform, for our connection and our unity to be able to perpetuate this beauty that you spoke of in many ways, you know, to many people, for the betterment. So thank you for that, you know. And yeah, I'd like to finish with a karakia, a closing karakia, if you're open to that. Yeah. I feel like everyone's got the gist and the feel of this whole package, and to emphasize connection and how we create that companionship and relationship on deeper levels, you know, to appreciate and be more content, and that contentment helps us to be rather than to push and pull things to be more aligned and flowing. All of these characteristics all feed and network each other to create a greater space, you know, because when we go into those spaces, like I was feeling like in going to the hospital, it was difficult. If I was going into a lockdown or an isolation, these things are really powerful tools for us to really carry on through to keep our mental health well, our emotional health well, our physical health well, and our social health well, because they're all really being challenged. And that's something that's really interesting for me, that at a catastrophic moment in time, and I get the reasons from a logical or you know, like left brain thinking. However, it creates so much more turmoil and discomfort, illness, sickness, and death. So that's interesting. So when we are able to still go into that space, feeling confident and good, we can have really good results. Because I could have played into many scenarios and stories I was fed, but I chose to stay strong and congruent to what I was told and what I knew through my time. And that's a wonderful gift, to feel confident in what you know. Of course, there's an element where it pulses and it moves. Yeah. So, yeah, to sit and be more with oneself. Yeah. And who they choose to bring out. Because the most important thing is there's no one in the world like you, me, or anyone. Never will be. Never has been. We're all unique, and that means there's something unique that we have for this world. It's a true gift. And that's what I believe is our purpose and our mission. And that really helps. And through this isolation time, it's a really good reflection time and moment to really pause and have a look at that. If you still feel you have no purpose, or your purpose needs definition and growth. So that's what I reckon reflection is really powerful time for us for. So look at it through those times and periods, appreciation and so forth, contentment, acceptance. Yeah. So pauhiri, paupuata mapo, te whakarapo, te manaki pauhiri nei ki au, ki a koe, ki ngā tangata katoa. Huie, tai ki e. Inuhi ki te tapu nui a tāne, ki a wātea, ki a māma, ki te māku, te hinama, te wairua, ai, te tingana. I te takatapuru i te tāne, i te rongoa, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao. Whano, harama i te tōki, huie, tai ki e. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, brother. Thanks, man.